Go. Can't tell if it's, yeah, it is recording. There it is. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do that. Get that started. Who doesn't love a Monday pun? Isn't that just so funny? I don't even know what I was doing when I was creating these slides. All right, there we go. It's barely a pun, right? Is that a pun? Not a pun. It's just a sentence that I used our topic in. But I still laughed at it. And then I laughed at the GIF. So whatever. I crack myself up all the time. Otherwise, I would have gone crazy in the pandemic if I haven't already. Okay. Let's get this party started. Welcome to lecture number 19 by yours truly. Today, we're going to be talking about REST in Java. But not only that, we're going to be talking about the rest of class. This is our last lecture. I know everybody who has their camera off is bawling their eyes out right now. I am holding down the tears. I'm just very dehydrated. So hence why, because I've been crying previously. That's why I'm not crying, but I am very sad inside. This has been an excellent, fun adventure. And like Greg has said, I am just always working with LaunchCode for 25 weeks with all of you all. You have gone through so much, and it's just great to see all of your smiling faces here for this last lecture. So let's get this started. As always, we start with announcements, nothing new there. And you probably already saw this one coming. Assignment number 4 in Studio 19. You know, both of these things are on our to-do list, and hopefully we have them nearly checked off because this is what we need in order to get into liftoff. Failure to show that we can complete assignment 4 or put any effort towards Studio 19 might hold us back. So make sure that you're getting those questions out, asking your TAs, asking anybody you possibly can, including myself, any kind of questions or knowledge gaps that you have about the assignment. If anybody needs the Calendarly link, I know I've been getting a few extra requests for that to schedule time with me. Feel free to just direct message me, and I'm happy to set up time whatever I have left here this week to get your questions answered. Next up, Greg already mentioned this also, but we have graduation on April 5th, Monday at 6 p.m. There will not be any lecture on Thursday. Thursday is for you all to catch up, get any assignments you have done, Studio 19, etc., or just getting those questions answered. So any questions on our announcements or anything that's expected for the rest of this week before we cross that finish line on Monday? Okie dokie. Then we are going to jump right into it. As always, we've always seen this stuff before. We have our UI, our client side. We have a controller on our server side, and my face is right in the way of my slides. I'm going to move myself over there. Why am I even there? There it is. We always see this. Client side, left-hand side, controller, the server side on the right-hand side, and I'm going to type in a nice, fun little URL there, which is localhost 8080. We're going to send over a request as always, but my question to you all is, what kind of request is being sent to the controller when I type in this URL and press enter?
Get request.
A get request, very good. A get request is being sent because it builds the page. We are requesting to get the page so we can actually view it. Remember, this can also be synonymous to rendering the page, creating the page, showing the page, things like that. Get requests do that. And then, as always, we get a response back. When that response comes back, it brings us that HTML. Here we have our login screen. So as always, I'm going to provide some login information. We have our username and our password. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take my cursor and press login. When that happens, what kind of request is being sent now?
Post request.
What was it?
Post request.
Post request, very good. A post request, because we're sending information to the controller. We're sending a username and a password, a password hash, because we never actually send that password over, in order to get to the controller to log in and send us back that information. Very good. So our gets and posts are what have been creating our web pages and basically the overall experience of our servers and on our browsers. But one thing we've always just taken for granted is that these requests are just lying around. We've never actually gone into depth about what these requests are. We just hope that they exist and that connection stays current. So let's actually talk about the request for just a moment. We're going to bring back that UI side and also that server side. As we've known since we've been starting with MVC, we're having conversations between these two. The UI side is say, I'm sending you a request. Naturally, it sends it the request. The controller, though, in most regards, always answers back. But my question to you is, what if the controller was actually German and could not understand what the request was? If the UI talks English to the controller, but the controller, it comes from another foreign background, well then the request isn't going to go through because the conversation is not being held in a single language. It's not being held in a very standard way. So that being said, we know now these requests talk in the same language because they've been coming back and forth. We haven't had an issue. But the question is, what language have we actually been talking in between the UI and the server? Well, that's where REST comes in. REST is an architecture in which we can talk between browsers and controllers or servers, and also servers to servers, in a standard-ish way. REST standing for Representational State Transfer. Don't worry too much about this actual acronym, just know that REST is the architecture in which we talk between our UIs and our servers. And it's also the most popular way computers talk to each other on the internet. Now, let's explore a little bit more about REST. The great thing about this is that you already know REST. Just because we are now just talking about the name doesn't mean you haven't actually gone over these concepts. Why do I know you already know REST? Because you know what GET is. What does GET do again?
It shows information.
Very good. It retrieves something. It retrieves information. Another one you've seen is POST. This creates something, sends information over in order for it to be created, or, well, no, always created. Because we are now going to be introduced to new RESTful methods. Another one that exists out there is called PUT. PUT will update something. For instance, if we have our dog object and we went over and created that dog, and I wanted to update that dog or edit it, I would actually use a PUT. Another one is, what if I wanted to remove that dog? Well, in that case, I would delete it. Obviously, delete will delete something. It will remove it from wherever it's talking to. So what exactly is REST? Again, REST is not a standard in itself. REST is an architecture. It's an architecture that uses standards so that people all over the world can talk to other computers in a, basically, I don't like to use the word because it's not a standard, but a standardized way. We know we're talking to computers in REST using other standards. Now we'll talk about these other standards here in a moment, but just know when you're having conversations out there with other people or other kind of computers, REST is the way we're going to go. So let's dive a little bit more in depth about what REST all is and what these requests actually have inside of them. We're going to be sending over that GET request again. Now, again, we've been taking these GET requests just for granted. It's great. It's being sent over the controller and things always get sent back. But one additional thing that we've been holding back from you is that these requests can actually have more baggage to them. What do I mean by that? We can actually add more parameters onto our requests to tell our server what exactly we want. One thing is the accept header. Remember this extra baggage, well, not remember, do note that these extra baggage are called headers. It's essentially just extra information that's going to be attached to the request, so the server kind of knows exactly what you want or looking for. And one of these is this accept text/HTML. What this is telling our controller or our server is that we only expect to get back text, aka like a sentence, or HTML back from the controller. We send this header over telling the controller exactly what we want to get. So naturally, when the response comes over, it's like, hey, okay, you wanted text or HTML? Well, in this case, I'm going to send you HTML because you requested the login screen. To make sure that our UI side knows that the content is coming back properly in the correct format, we can also add headers to the response, hence content type. It's another one we can add. This is another type of header we can add to our response. Now, you might be asking yourself, okay, do these play a huge part in our conversation between the UI and the controller? And the answer is sometimes. It depends on what the server is looking for. Right now, since we're just starting out, it's not going to be too big of a deal. But the point is here is that you should know that there's more to requests than just gets and posts and a bit of information. These accepts and content types can truly help you as you progress talking to other servers or your own controller. One more header that you are all very familiar with, whether it be a good thing or a bad thing, is the status. The status is probably one of the more important things that we have to deal with because it tells us how things went. Sorry, was that a question? Okay, so the status is telling us how things went. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at this one because you've already seen this before, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. But I want to explain what these status codes are. Status codes are actually coming from HTTP status codes. If you're, let me see. I'm going to ask anybody, don't forget to mute yourself if you are not asking a question. All right, sorry about that. I just got a lot of stuff in the ear. I think my headphones are like turned up an extra bit today. All right, so anyway, HTTP status codes. Now, why did I add this extra word? Because this is one of the standards we're using to communicate between the UI side and the server side. HTTP standing for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Again, this is just extra information. Is it important? Kind of, but it's nothing that's going to set anything apart here. I want you to be aware that HTTP is how we actually communicate as a standard across the internet. You might have recognized HTTP and HTTPS in your URL bars that are on the far left side. Again, that's how we do communication, especially for websites and server transfers. So this code, so these codes actually tell us how things are going when a server or when a client sends something to a server. So you already saw the 200 OK. You've already seen the 204 no content. This one means everything went fine. It's just that the server didn't respond anything back. So everything's honky-dory. Don't worry about it. Now let's take a look at something a little bit worse. As the numbers get higher, typically that indicates something's wrong. The first one you might have seen is a 400, a bad request. This means that the server cannot make heads or tails of anything you just sent it. No idea what you just talked about. You basically should have just talked to it in German because it doesn't know how to help you with your request. So we'll send back a 400. This will typically mean that maybe there was something missing, maybe one of your parameters or just some kind of content, even a header, and it just can't help you. Who can tell me though what this 400, specifically the 404 is? Who remembers what this one is?
Not found.
Very good, and not found. This means that the server could help process your request but couldn't find what you were asking for it. You've seen this commonly when you go to a URL that goes to a path that has no controller or mapping associated with it. That's when you'll get this 404. The server over there on our controller literally cannot find what you're talking about. So we'll send back a 404. All right, let's get higher in numbers here. 500. 500 means internal server error. This one means that something blew up over in the server. Completely exploded, nuclear blast zone, stay away from there. So this means that something is going wrong on the server side. Now these numbers really do help us out because when you're doing full stack, and what full stack means is that you do UI work, client side, and server side work. These numbers help us indicate where to start looking for a problem. What do I mean by that exactly? If I see a 400 or a 404 or anything in the 400s family, I can usually trace that back to a UI error. Something in my HTML or something over there is causing an issue, something that's trying to talk to the controller. That's what 400s usually mean. When I see a 500, this means that there's something on my server side that's going wrong. So I start looking there. Hence how I start my error tracing when I get these codes back or these status codes back. So any questions up into this point about codes, about HTTP, and about REST? Because like it or not, we use it every day, every single day. Every time we press enter on the URL bar, we use REST and we use HTTP. We also use a bunch of other standards. JSON is a standard. We have some XML stuff. Technically, I think HTML.
I have a question.
No, that's language. Yeah, what's up?
All right, so now you actually have to have, well, the user actually has to have a connection with the server to get a 500 error though, right?
Correct. Yes.
Because like if there's no connection, then it just says the site cannot be reached.
Correct. That would be just, yeah, you wouldn't even get a code back if there was no internet connection.
Okay, okay.
Yep. It would
So,
literally just error out.
I mean, if there is no server, then I mean, that doesn't qualify as a server error, or maybe I'm confused.
So these codes are only if you are talking to the server and the server sends something back.
Right, okay,
You have to have a connection to the server in order to get any of these status codes.
okay.
If you type in just anything that doesn't exist out in the internet, technically that one, you just won't get a connection to any server. It will just literally spit you back and say, this site does not exist. You won't even get a code at that point. Or yeah, I believe you won't, because you need a 404 no good to server error. So yeah, essentially you need an internet connection here in order to get a code back.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, great question.
I got a question. This is a jargon related question because generally when I've heard the term REST, they're referring to the RESTful API, right? So we've used a couple APIs and I imagine it's not the last time I'm going to use an API, but I'm confused because shouldn't all APIs be RESTful? Because that's what they do, right?
Yes, majority of the APIs, and we'll talk about that today. So, but I will answer your question right now slightly. It will most likely be REST. There are different types of communication styles out there that not everybody uses REST anymore, but REST is the most popular.
What else is there?
There's other querying styles called GraphQL. GraphQL is a way that you can send over queries to APIs in a JSON style format to get back information. So if you want to look up other popular ways to communicate, GraphQL is another one. However, GraphQL can sometimes utilize RESTful because REST, again, is not a standard how we communicate. It is simply an architecture. So you can send over GraphQL queries using REST, again, the architecture of REST, using the standards of GraphQL. So just remember that, yes, majority of your APIs out there will use REST because the posts, the gets, the deletes out there, that is what everyone's accustomed to. So majority, again, of APIs that you'll talk to utilize REST. So good question, but we'll go down a rabbit hole and I'm going to start having opinions, and that's a bad place to be. But great question there. Does it help out, Alexia?
I guess, yeah.
Okay, we can talk.
No, it didn't really, but I'll ask you about it outside of class.
Okay, and if we have time at the end of class here, we can also start looking at that stuff. Okay. Any other questions about RESTful stuff, about not APIs just yet? Hold off on API questions. Anything about yeah, HTTP or what we just talked about? I'm hearing happy silence. Okay, all right. Everyone's like, yeah, I got it. I know this, whatever, pencil drop. All right, that being said, does anyone know this code? One of my favorite codes. 20 brownie points to anybody who can get this one. Any TAs that are online? Oh, I think they're in meeting right now.
I'm a teacup.
Teapot.
Yeah, it is. I'm a teacup. Awesome. Yeah, I'm a teapot. Very good. I'm a teapot. This was actually an April Fool's joke that was created back in the 80s, I believe, by the people that were implementing REST. So it is, I forgot what actual company did it, but it was hilarious. And someone showed it to me a few years ago. I was like, that's awesome. That's why I love coding, because even developers that use government agencies use REST, but we still keep 418 around just because it's hilarious. So if anybody wants to know that kind of community that they're getting themselves into, it's this. I'm a teapot. All right. Which, by the way, is still recognized. Just saying. All right. So that being said, let's go ahead and just keep talking. about why is all of this even important. And Alexia, I should have had this slide next up because I like to just, answer questions with slides, but let's talk about why we even care about REST, why we even care about all these standards, or even talking to our servers. As we already know, we have requests and responses constantly going back from our UI and our controller because we need to build stuff. But we've only been talking to our controller, especially in Java here. We've only been talking back and forth, literally almost to ourselves. So the question some of you probably have already asked yourself, and it's clear that some have, what if we just don't want to talk to ourselves? What if we actually want to get more information out there? What if for whatever reason we want to get weather information? Well, we know our controller doesn't have weather information, and I certainly don't want to go out to every possible county and collect weather information. But luckily, there are smart/nerdy people out there that have already done this and consistently do it today. Information exists in the internet for our benefit, so we can build applications to basically progress ourselves, our applications, and humanity as a whole. But where does this information live? As we've already talked about it today, and probably mentioned it back in the JavaScript times, is that this information lives in the internet, utilized and accessed through what we call an API. An API is an application programmable interface. Yeah, I always forget which one is like the ION. Application programmable interface. And what this does is that it offers a gateway to awesome, fantastic, delicious information/data. I don't know if I've ever said this, but besides liking dogs, I love data. I love looking at Excel sheets of data. I love just any kind of data. Like I was obsessed with weather data for a bit. Like I had like recipe data. Like if I can get my hands on any kind of data, love it. And luckily there's people out there with all this kind of information. And so APIs allow us to get information from other sources, whether it be recipes or whether it be weather information. But we haven't really worked with APIs, and we have not dove in too much of the code to talk to these external APIs in Java. That unfortunately will fall on you all if you want to actually talk with your controllers to other APIs. But today I want to introduce you a tool to start exploring out there into the World Wide Web of data. Wow, got that one backwards. And to do that, a common, very popular tool that people such as myself use is called Postman. Postman is a way that we can talk to APIs without having to build a bunch of code. And we'll be introduced to Postman here today. So if anyone is ever curious about exploring this, especially before liftoff, hint, hint, definitely look into Postman. Furthermore, Postman is great, we can talk to APIs, but we still need to understand where we're going to be getting this weather information from. So today, I want to introduce you all to a little friend called OpenWeather. OpenWeather is one of the millions of APIs out there on the web that you can use to get information from. Specifically, you guessed it, weather information in this one. So let's go ahead and basically talk about that. We're going to be using Postman today, and we're going to be using OpenWeather today. But there's one more piece to the puzzle. Unfortunately, today, there's no more trust in the data business. Back in my day, because I am ancient, I didn't even need to have to deal with any kind of issue when I wanted to get data. All I got to do is make sure that I just change my IP address and it would just give me as much information as I want. And I would basically just capture that data and save it for myself whenever I wanted to. But unfortunately, big companies realized that people were doing that. And unfortunately, they also realized that data equals money. So everybody typically locks down their APIs now. Everything's very locked down. And in order to unlock that information, as you know how to unlock an account, typically we send over a request, but we need to make sure that we are authorized to access this information. How they authorize this is not through a login screen when we're talking to APIs, but instead with something called an API key. API keys are what uses to authenticate us and give us information exactly what we're supposed to have access to. Specifically, for this example, we're going to be creating an API key to unlock that data in the weather API and then sending us back over that information. So I hope you're all excited because this is my favorite part. I love this part. And also I deal with it all day. So any questions up until this point before we start actually seeing what I'm talking about? All right, then enough chitter chat. Let's actually see what's going on here. First person I want to introduce you to is OpenWeather. OpenWeather.org, again, is that API. You can come on here and you can go into see API, and then it's going to give you a few choices. If you want to try this at home, feel free to. What I recommend is that coming to the, let me see which one it is, not the road risk. There's a lot of APIs here. So if you want to like what happened in like 1960 weather, they have that, statistical weather. We're going to just come up here. We're going to just get current weather. So you can subscribe and also get the documentation for this. Clicking on subscribe, we would come over here, and this is where everyone discovered that data is equal to a lot of money. So unfortunately, if you want to get the nice stuff, you have to pay a bit of money. But luckily, they still have a heart and they give us a free column. That's where I like to come in. So you can actually get your API key and still get 1 million calls a month. 1 million calls a month is a lot of calls. The only thing that's going to be going over 1 million calls a month is something that like an application that's using it on the daily. Hence why this is a great thing to do just with Postman. So I would recommend just saying get API key here, and then you'll just have to create an account, which you do, everything, you create an account, and then I'm going to go ahead and sign in here. 20 seconds. Let's hope I remember my password. I did, awesome. And I didn't verify my email, so it yells at me. And then I go into my stuff. See if I can do it here. Oh, there it is. No, come back. Then once you log in, it'll be under API keys. So you come over here and look at that key. Also, please don't steal my key because I forgot this is being recorded. So now I'm gonna have to delete this. Dang it. All right. Oh, well. Please don't steal my data. Anywho, so this is the API key. Now we have our API key. All great. So the next thing you need to do is that you need to get a route. Just like how you've been doing your login screen, you would go and see what route you actually have to go to in order to see how to query the data or get the data. So you just click on the current weather data document information. Down here for the API calls, it has just a simple API call here. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. All right, we copied this. We have an API key. So what are we going to do with all this? Well, that's where my second buddy comes in. We're going to do Postman. Just like I said, Postman is something I use every day in my day job. And it's also something that I do recommend for all of you to try out to explore different APIs and maybe bring them into your application in the future. Again, liftoff, that's always a possibility. So welcome to Postman. Postman is somewhere you can just set up a request, a GET request, or sorry, a REST request. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this plus up here. And over here, we get to see actually all of the RESTful methods, which there's a lot more than the 4 we've learned. There's patch, delete, copy, head, purge, lock, unlock, and for some reason they come out with new ones here and there also. So the ones that we learned about are the most popular. For this one, we need to do a GET request. And how I know it's a GET request is because we're using these little parameters here. So I'm going to make sure GET stays like that, and I'm going to paste in that link right there. And now I need to type in my city name. As we see, it brought in those parameters for us. It helps us out. So we can just type in St. Louis here. And it just updates our URL up there. Super easy. Also, I'm going to cheat here and grab my API key from the other thing. Come back over here and then paste in the API key. All right, y'all ready to see this? We send it and we got back information about our current weather in St. Louis. Isn't that mind-blowing? I now know that there are clouds outside and I didn't even have to look out the window. That's 22nd century stuff right there. So this is how we communicate with people who are collecting data all over the world about various things. If you are interested in weather, OpenWeather Maps is a good one to go. If you're interested in geographical data, OpenStreetMaps is another one. It's a great way to just kind of see how geography works. And then if you just want to just explore a bunch of APIs, go to Rapid API. Rapid API is a collection of APIs out there that you can just explore what you want to do. So literally any kind of information out there is accessible to you through Rapid API. Again, you want to learn about recipes? Go ahead. You want to learn about cats? Go ahead. You want to learn about how many pathogens there are for corn? Hence a Bayer thing. Yeah, they have that. So feel free to explore this. This is where information comes in. All right. Any questions about anything that we just covered here? Okie dokie. Well, I hope you all enjoy this as much as this, because this is how I actually truly fell in love just like with data and everything and just programming, because you can access anything. You can know anything you want or make an application that knows that and do something with it. All right. It's coming down to the sad part now. We are on to our final facts. Today's facts. I do want to know, does anyone know, before McDonald's made chicken nuggets, they made what other kind of nuggets?
Catfish.
That would be not surprising, but also disgusting.
Hamburger nuggets?
Nope. I'll tell you this, they were vegetarian friendly. They made onion nuggets. Yeah, didn't know that one either. Thought that was fun. That is gross. Hence probably why I don't have it. The fear of vegetables is called what? If anyone has this one, I will just respect you. I had to look this one up. Someone wanted to split a vegetarian pizza or a veggie pizza with me, and I was like, I don't want veggies on my pizza today. I just don't want. Then I was like, oh, fear of vegetables. And the answer is that word, Lanchthanopia. I can't pronounce anything, but it's that big long word. Does someone know how to pronounce it? Lanchthanopia? Something. I have a fear of long words too, so that just scares me right there. All right, final thing. There are how many shapes of pasta in the world?
Infinity.
That's true. I guess you can just mold it any shape.
15.
It's a little higher than 15. It is actually 350. Yes, and apparently, yeah, it's 350. I also found out there's like hundreds of types of apples too, and it just keeps growing every year. They like keep crossbreeding other apples, and it just makes more different types of apples. So, fun facts of the day. There's another fun fact here I forgot to tell you guys about, but this is what I have. So, fun food facts. All righty, continuing on. Let's talk about developing and development. You all have come so far in Launch Code. Again, we talked about it, but again, I just can't stop respecting you all for being here and getting to where you are and learning to what you have. You have gotten a lot of knowledge about a lot of different parts of a lot of different languages, concepts, architectures, protocols, standards, all those words that are coming in my mouth. So where you are is that you were just given a humongous set of toolboxes. You were essentially taught how to ride a bike. That is great. You are all right now, whether you feel like you're falling down here and there, you are still getting back up on that bike and you are riding it. You consistently do it every day, and you're here today listening to me, so you're clearly on that bike. Again, you don't have to be riding it perfectly, but you are continuing to go. This is the first big step to development, to being a developer. A developer, as I've said before, doesn't come from books. It doesn't come from just like reading some things online. It's actually coming from working and getting your hands dirty and actually getting wisdom about the toolboxes that you've been given as you're riding that bike. So as you move forward with these toolboxes, with this bike that you're on, I cannot help you anymore. Neither can anybody else. You have been given that knowledge and information about how to code, but only you can decide of where you go from here. And I mean that in all sincerity. Development can only come from 1, consistent practice, 2, dedication, and 3, actually getting your hands dirty. Liftoff, that's coming up here, will try to teach you those tools. but it is going to fall on you now to actually progress your own development skills. So I can only help you by finding one, possibly a path or a focus forward as you move on in your development. And to do that, and I've been getting a lot of questions about this, is that how, after you do this class, after you get out of liftoff, do you continue to progress as a developer? Of course, you can listen to Udemy, you can watch YouTube videos to learn another language, you can master this language, but only until you find your happy place can you truly be happy in developing and become senior into development. And the best way to begin that process, if you haven't already, is creating a project of your own, or just simply expanding on a project that you've done in the past. Anything that truly gets you happy and excited to code about it. So, questions you might be asking yourself: why do I want to code? What would I actually want to code? And the question I would have for you is that I can't answer that. So what hobbies do you have? Think about that. What do you actually like to do? As you know, in society, technology has gotten itself into everything, literally everything. I've met somebody who has like an RDF thing in his arm today. And I'm like, it's literally in our skin now. Technology is everywhere. The hobby that you have can have technology in it. So the question is, how can you use technology, your coding skills, to make your hobby better? Find that thing that makes you happy, figure out how to put technology into it, and do that. In order to do these projects and actually succeed in them, to make them something that will help you master your coding, is that don't try to take too much off, or what's that? Oh gosh, I just lost it. Don't bite off too much you can chew. That's what I was going for. There we go. What we need to go for is you need to start small. Focus on one small thing. There's a student right now that I've talked to that likes to do board games. And in order to do board games, you have to roll a certain amount of dice, or a certain side of dice. So instead of rolling that dice, why not make a program about it? That you can get a random number back, 1 through 10, 1 through 20, 1 through 11. I have other ones that simply just have a painter that just randomly paint or brings out a bunch of words in a sentence to have something that they can paint abstractly. Anything can have technology integrated into it. The second thing from that, take baby steps. Once you've found your focus, once you have something that you actually want to work for, take baby steps to improve it. Always making sure that you are understanding as you move forward in that project. And then finally, as always, challenge yourself. You're going to wake up some days that you don't want to code. There's some days that when you are coding, it's going to really just anger you. I'm not going to cuss because we're on that, but we all know a word that we'd like to sub in there, that coding will eventually make you feel. And you're not going to have some good days. But know that it's there to be a puzzle. It's there to be a challenge, and it's there to be your artistic outlet. So yeah, it will definitely anger you here and there, but challenge yourself to figure out what happened and progress yourself from it. Learn from those mistakes, build your wisdom, and become that senior developer you want to be. All right, that all being said, hopefully this answers some questions. The next step you have is liftoff. Everything that we have here, I will still be accessible. The Slack will be accessible. But a couple final things I did want to talk about is that information that we have is that the content that we were talking about, like again, those lectures, the studios, and also the exercises will be accessible here up until probably end of summer. So if anybody needed those, feel free to do that. And then I've also gotten these questions here and there. Slack typically stays available after a few months of the class at least. I have some channels that are still like wide open, people still talk on. So it stays open for quite a bit. So don't feel like after today, I'm gonna turn it off and we're never gonna talk again. So at the end, here we are. It is a bitter final goodbye. It has been an absolute pleasure to teaching and getting to know each and every one of you. Everybody I've worked with and just gotten like that feedback from. You guys are hilarious just listening to that, especially down to pizzas and anime. I have had just an absolute pleasure, this being the first class I've ever taught. So thank you to all of you for just participating, sticking through all of this, dealing with me as I've learned in this class, and overall just being great people and trying to progress yourself. So in the end, here we're all finished. Just challenge you now to like, go ahead, step out of your house whenever you feel safe and go change the world real quick, because you all have it inside of you to do it. So that being said, thank you everybody again. And that is all I have for you all, and happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Being a positive ball of light and the force of darkness that is coding.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna write that quote down. I like that. Dane, was that you that had a
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
What's up?
I don't know if I missed it, but how long will we have the readings available during liftoff?
The readings will never be taken away. The readings are fully accessible, so that site will never be limited, at least of right now. Yep,
Cool. Thank you.
absolutely.
What about the videos on your YouTube channel?
Like I said, yeah, absolutely. Those will be all accessible up until probably about the end of summer. I'm going to be teaching the JavaScript course. So whenever they start flipping over to Java, I do unfortunately have to take those down. But if you ever do need them and they're taken down for whatever reason, just feel free to Slack me. I'm happy to send you a direct link. Any other questions, y'all? All right. Well, the next step is tonight. Feel free to work on those assignment 4s, getting any work done you need. But other than that, everybody, that is all I have for you all. And why can I not find my thing today?
It's been an honor.
It has
Thanks a lot.
absolutely been an honor. Absolutely, everybody. All right. Let me see if I can just stop sharing. Okay, everybody. Yeah. So thank you very much. Have a great week. Oh, there, stop share. Finally, there. All right. Have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you all back on Monday for graduation, and then feel free to Slack me if anyone has any questions. Other than that, thank you all and have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.